Hello and welcome everybody to the Crypto Mining Show, your one-stop shop for all crypto news from the perspective of a cryptocurrency miner. I go by Blind Run on the internet and Matthew in real life, and today we're going to be talking about some more crypto mining news. We have the Bitcoin miner Riot delayed their 10K filing due to impairment calculation issues. We're also going to be talking about an employee who is stealing thousands of dollars from a town to power a crypto mine. We're also going to be talking about Bitcoin miners starting to emerge from the brutal crypto winter. We have some new miner releases that are coming on the forefront, mining hardware from Gold Shell Miner, as well as from Ipolo, one that I'm extremely excited about and to talk about. And of course, the elephant in the room is Woolly Pool stealing your cryptocurrency, whether that be Kaspa, Nexa, etc. We're going to take a look at that, and I'm hopefully going to give you guys some insight from my perspective as someone who used to run some mining pools and exactly how that's going on. There is another video that I encourage you guys to go check out from DeFi Django covering this as well. I did watch it, so I have that perspective as well to talk about this from, as well as the official announcements from the pool, Woolly Pool themselves. And so we're just going to talk a little bit about that and try to get down to the bottom of it. We're also going to be talking about, of course, miner profitability for the week and the new miner releases. So all of that and more is coming. I want to thank everybody that's becoming a member. Bojangles, Chadwicks, thank you guys for becoming members over there. Remember, super chats are never required, always appreciated. First to be read at the end for, of course, the Q&A, so if you're interested in that. And then we will be streaming over on sonofatech.locals after this and chatting a little bit more. I have been extremely busy this week. I had some personal health issues, unfortunately, that got in the way of streaming on Friday. I went to go try to stream as well yesterday, and the health issues got in the way again. I think we're good to go right now. We can talk about that, though, at the end with the Q&A. We also have a new product launch that we're going to be talking about, and so let's get into that. Before we get into the rest of the show, today's show is brought to you by myself. And that is because we have launched the reservations for the 2023 crypto mining profits e-course on my website at sonofatech.com. I'm extremely excited about this. I was finally encouraged to do this, and it is, not something that I typically would get into doing, but I was convinced that my knowledge is definitely worth something, and that I should share this out, and this is hopefully going to help build up some revenue, obviously, that I will be utilizing to reinvest in my own crypto mining farm. So there you go, full transparency. $697 for the course. That's going to be the 9-step course. There is an upsell here that will be launching later as well that is going to be covering crypto mining timing, and that is extremely insightful and helpful. And this was all helped put together by another group of people that is also going to be helping me get more content out to you guys. So that's the entire goal. This is brought to you once again by myself, and luckily we can break a lot of barriers with this format of talking about cryptocurrency because we are not beholden to the rules and regulations that other platforms set forth. If you want details, though, on my specific moves, etc., I am doing that over on Locals. So another little upsell here is if you guys want to join Locals, it's free to join. But if you want to see some of our basically subscriber only posts, you can become a subscriber. We are at, or a supporter. We are at 316 out of the 500 supporter goal, and we will be streaming over on that platform afterwards. So once again, brought to you by myself. This is the way we're going to move forward, especially within content creation. This is the path forward that I think a lot of people have been moving. I've been a little standoffish towards it. I'll talk about that over on Locals later on, but I'm going to be adopting it and taking it full force because this is the nature of the beast. And yes, I do intend to generate revenue, and I'm going to share, not only how I'm doing that with the side of crypto mining, but as well as the side of content creation, etc., because this is very interesting from a business standpoint and becoming more familiar with all the tools that are available to you, including things, of course, like ChatGPT, which we're going to be talking about for cryptocurrency as well. I hope you enjoy it. And once again, right now you can claim your spot. The downloads are not up yet. the first 4 videos are ready. Videos / content. So there's slides, PDFs, all that sort of stuff that you're going to be getting as part of that course. And when that is available, if you've claimed your spot, you'll just get a download link to your email for whatever those digital products are. So there you go. That's it. I'm super excited, put a lot of work into it, and I hope that you guys find value in it. And if you don't, please let me know as well. Let's go ahead and talk about the first article today. Bitcoin miner Riot delayed their 10K filing due to impairment calculation issues. The delay followed a similar move earlier this week by Marathon Digital. Bitcoin miner Riot Platforms delayed the filing of its annual 10K report with the Securities and Exchange Commission due to issues raised by its accounting firm about the company's impairment calculations related to its Bitcoin assets. Quote, after assessing the impact of its revised impairment assessment methodology, the registrant determined that material errors in certain of its financial statements and reports resulted. So here we go. That was what Riot wrote in its SEC filing on Thursday. Specifically, Riot said its previously issued financial statements for 2022, 2021, and 2020 contained material errors and should not be relied upon. For those reasons, Riot said it needed additional time to complete its 10K, and it has since done so and filed its report for 2022. Shares of Riot were down 2.4% in after-hours trading on Thursday. Earlier this week, fellow miner Marathon Digital said it would need to restate portions of its audited 2021 results and unaudited quarter reports from 2022 following an inquiry from the SEC that questioned its method of calculating impairment on digital assets. Marathon has previously been scheduled to release its 2022 Q4 results after the close of trading on Tuesday, but now has postponed that. Suffice to say, I think like when we look at this stuff, it is important to give these companies a little bit of leeway when it pertains to the massive shifts within the market that have taken place over 2022 and the way that's going to change value of not only the cryptocurrency as it shows on the books, but also of the equipment, as well as what was required in power cost, etc. And because of the shifting nature, the increase in, of course, power costs and the decrease in the value of the equipment, it can be extremely difficult to file these types of things. So to a certain extent, I understand, especially at that level, you're probably looking at it and going, where can we find the best, deal for everybody involved? Being a public company as a miner is also extremely dangerous, I think, at this, from the nature of the way Bitcoin operates. And it's actually kind of falls in line, in my humble opinion, with the kind of the inception and the reason for Bitcoin in the first place fundamentally, because what we're seeing is essentially an industry that is incompatible with the current financial institutions. And because of the way the halving cycle impacts these companies, as they approach it from a general, archaic financial institution perspective, that it's not working, which is kind of funny if you really think about it from the very get-go. I think when you approach cryptocurrency in general, if you're going to try to integrate it with the traditional financial institutions, I think that you are going to have a completely different strategic platform than you would in a different industry or a more standard industry. Let me get some water because we kind of hiccuped there. So I think what you'll start to see in crypto companies are specialized individuals on the boards, etc., that are familiar with cryptocurrency and how it functions, specifically how it pertains to the halving cycle. I'm going to drive this home. The halving cycle is here to stay for at least another 12 years. I talk more in depth about this, of course, in my Ecourse, because this is extremely important to understand if you're getting into the industry, that you have a 4-year cycle based around the Bitcoin mining halving. And because of that reduction reward, until that reduction of that reward brings the price of newly mintable Bitcoin to the same level as the fees per block, you are going to see basically this halving cycle wreak havoc on traditional financial institutions. Once it's stabled out, then we get to the point of it actually being in a position where we start to see it adopted across the board, and probably what I would consider to be the finalization of the digital transformation. Now, that's provided Bitcoin is the chosen path for, of course, the digital transformation. There are plenty of other paths that this could take if another cryptocurrency took hold of that and operated completely differently. Or, of course, central bank digital currencies, which could take over and put the power back in the hands of the nation states and probably push us towards more modern monetary policy. And all of that, of course, I've covered in the past, and we could get into depth of what that means. But essentially, but to not elaborate too far on this, but also give you an idea, when I refer to the modern monetary policy, I'm talking about something similar to what China is doing with the digital yuan, where we end up with policies that are meant to spur on spending by ignoring the ability for people to save for future generations or even for retirement, right? Because at the end of the day, modern monetary policy is dependent on essentially printing as much money as possible and continuing to circulate to stimulate the economy. A way that is being introduced, of course, with the digital yuan will be an expiration of that yuan based on usually a 30-day cycle, meaning if you get paid, monthly, you're going to have 30 days to spend that money or it will basically be burned. It's a big old Ponzi scheme run by traditional finance that, they're adopting essentially the scammiest parts of cryptocurrency, which we've talked about before, the hexes, the safe moons, that sort of thing. And it's funny that you see regulation coming down like the SEC, etc., or even funnier from the UK, because they've planned to adopt, of course, what the digital yuan is doing, where they talk about these being securities, but then for their own specific digital currencies are copying this platform. So, it's hypocritical, but at the same time, when we look at, the way that we are being gaslit by the government and those in power, it's not outside the realm of possibilities. That being said, there are still crypto rebels out there doing things that they probably shouldn't be doing. There was a secret crypto mine operated for months without detection in, I believe this is Massachusetts. A Cohasset employee charged with stealing thousands from town to power a crypto mine. Officially, Nadim Nahas worked for the town of Cohasset in the facilities department, but the Cohasset Police Department alleges he also secretly operated a cryptocurrency mine inside a crawl space in Cohasset Middle School High School, stealing nearly $18,000 in electricity from the district to do so. In December of 2021, school staff called Cohasset police officers after finding multiple computers, wires, and ventilation equipment inside a crawl space in the building that houses Cohasset Middle and High School. Police say the town's IT director recognized the setup as a crypto mine, and town investigators enlisted the help of the Department of Homeland Security to remove the equipment and examine it. Look at this, man. This guy had ventilation going and everything, my man. This is pretty fantastic in my humble opinion, because hell yeah, dude. This guy didn't just plug up a couple and then stop there. He was like, no, sir. No, sir. Please, we're going to have proper ventilation. We're going to make sure we take care of these rigs that are illegally mining in a school. After a 3-month investigation, police say the mine ran for 8 months, racking up $17,492 in electricity. They identified Assistant Facilities Director Nadim Nahas as the man who set up the mine. He's now facing charges of fraudulent use of electricity and vandalizing a school. Babson College Professor of Information Technology Management Steve Gordon is a cryptocurrency expert. He is unaffiliated with this criminal case, but explained the process of crypto mining to 5 Investigates. Quote, crypto mining is the way in which a network that supports a cryptocurrency is kept secure, he said. One of the reasons that they call it mining is that when a miner actually creates a new block, adds some transactions to the blockchain, they get rewarded with coins that are created out of thin air, end quote. We could say created out of thin air, or, part of the consensus mechanism to secure the blockchain. We know that basically it's not out of thin air, it's out of necessity for processing transactions and adding security to the network, right? This is what we know it as for miners. There is a value there, and there is tangible relation to the cost of power as well. High-powered computers must continually work to solve complex problems, aiming to validate connections and keep crypto transactions secure. When they are successful, miners are rewarded for their efforts with new coins, potentially netting thousands of dollars. Bitcoin miners, for example, get currently rewarded with 6.25 Bitcoins. Of course, this comes down to the halving cycle, and we'd have to talk about that here coming up really soon in like April of 2024. We'll have the next halving, which will, of course, cut this down to 3.12 as far as the amount of Bitcoin, newly minted Bitcoin. But you do not only get rewarded with the newly minted Bitcoin, you also get rewarded with the fees for that particular block. So if somebody is going in and making a transaction, they pay a certain amount of fees to that block. And when that gets solved, you also get that as a Bitcoin miner, which is why I talk about really breaking out of the halving cycle and into what some call the macro cycle really requires the amount of Bitcoin, newly minted Bitcoin coming onto the network per block matches the amount of fees per block, right? That's why I say that's when I think we'll break into a macro market. But the high-powered computers must run constantly, in turn consuming a large amount of energy. Quote, it is estimated that the total amount of energy used in the Bitcoin blockchain would be enough to power a small country like Switzerland or something like that, end quote, Gordon said. In a place like Massachusetts, the cost of electricity eats any potential profits from mining. 5 Investigates, Karen Anderson, asked Gordon if it makes sense to try crypto mining anywhere in New England. Quote, not really, Gordon answered, not unless you make an arrangement at some point in time with an energy provider to provide it very cheaply. Now, of course, there is the Bitcoin mines that are in the like newly renovated dams and stuff. We've seen that on the Hobbyist Miners channel, of course, and with the company there that basically refurbished in New York, refurbished a dam to go ahead and mine out of that. There are these potentials for, use cases within the Northeast, but they're very few and far between, right? So instead, this guy stole it. Nahas resigned from his position with the town of Cohasset in March of 2022. When reached by phone, Nahas declined to comment. Nahas failed to appear in Quincy District Court on Thursday. A warrant has now been issued for his arrest. The dude's run into El Salvador. Just kidding. We'll have to see what happens, and we'll continue to follow this. Stealing power is bad, right? Like, here's the thing. As a crypto miner, it's important to understand something. If you genuinely believe that what you do is providing a service and it has value, then you have to believe that your value is tied specifically to how well and efficiently you utilize power. The only reason you should be being paid is that you actually do participate within the ecosystem by providing that power to the network. And if you are not paying for that power, then it is not your crypto, not your power, not your crypto. We've talked about this too before. As far as being careful when you are hosting and so on, because the negotiations of power purchase agreements, etc., being put to a single company can result, of course, in situations like we saw with Compass Mining, for example, where they didn't have good purchase agreements, etc., and had issues with and disputes with their power companies and their power distribution companies, right? And what that does is that puts you in a position where if you were renting from them, your equipment gets shut off for a time being. Are they still charging you? All that sort of stuff. Be very careful with essentially any type of rental, right? Any type of hosting program, that sort of thing. There's lots of good guys out there. I always put it this way. It's the easiest way to put it when it comes to hosting. the path to hell is paved with good intentions. I do not think that there is intentional malfeasance. Is that whatever that word? Is that the right word? I don't think that anybody's intentionally trying to screw you over if you're hosting with them. That being said, I think that a lot of people jump in to hosting seeing it as a way to earn potential passive income. And like I've said before, I don't believe in passive income. And as it pertains to mining, it's very clear that there are a lot of factors, not only from your power company that you have to take into consideration, but also from the reliability of the miners that you host. And that can put you in a position as a hosting company that can be very, very dangerous. So you have to be extremely careful. And if you are, the person that is the hostee, right? You're sending your equipment to be hosted. You can end up in a position where it's like, well, you feel bad for the company that's hosting because they negotiated a bad power deal, or power got shut off for a time, or your miner started failing on them, all these kind of things. And it can come down to a lot of different things as well. Like, is the area cooled well enough? All that sort of thing to make sure that, whose fault is it? Is it if you have an Antminer S19 XP, right, that ends up taking a dump, or was it the hosting facility's fault because they didn't have proper ventilation? Or is it Bitmain's fault for, not building a reliable unit? And in the case of like maybe a T17, it's probably Bitmain's fault, but maybe in the case of an S919 non-XP, it's the hosting's fault. It's really hard to determine that. And, I would ask for example, if I was having any hosting done, intake and exhaust temperatures on my unit, right? I would ask for logs coming out from it so that I understood what that intake and exhaust temperature was, so that I could either make a decision on whether or not to allow them to continue to host my unit, or if that temperature was at a point that I thought that it was putting it in a compromised position to melt those hash boards. Speaking of ASIC miners, we do have a new ASIC miner coming from Dogecoin. And right here, or for Dogecoin, from Gold Shell Miner. And this is going to be the Mini Doge 2. There's 130 days out from this post, which was on February 27th, 2023. It's now March 5th. So we still have quite a few days before this launches. The hash rates are as follows: 335 mega hash a second at 260 watts for the low power mode, or 420 mega hash a second at 400 watts at the high power mode. If you took a look at that under the calculator at 10 cents a kilowatt hour, which actually we have now adjusted to 13 cents on all of our other calculators, so we'll continue to do that now. At the low power mode, you would be making about 2 cents a day on Digibyte plus Dogecoin. You would be basically break even on Litecoin but plus Doge. And if you tried to go to the full hash rate of the 420 mega hash a second at 400 watts, it looks even worse, right? You're losing 20 cents a day for a unit that's probably going to cost you $200. These mini units are always pretty neat, and sometimes you can get away with like purchasing a mini unit that does really, really well as a coin pumps or something along those lines. If you're wanting to learn to participate within the networks and so on, these can be a nice little entry level to get your feet wet with ASIC mining. But from an investment standpoint, it's not something that I would recommend. I think that saving up and purchasing, a piece of equipment that is going to be more expensive yet more efficient and actually become profitable is highly advisable. For example, if we looked at something with the, script algorithm, for example, we have like the Antminer L7 here. And yes, you are talking about between $7,000 and $10,000 depending on where you source it. But at 13 cents a kilowatt hour, you're making $13 a day still. Yes, it's going to cost you a lot more, but you're going to have more longevity out of it and it's going to last longer. In the case of a bull run, will these maybe be worth it? Sure, probably. That's definitely a high likelihood. But then so will this. This will perform just even that much better in a bull run. So when it comes down to like purchasing ASIC mining equipment, I'm not a huge fan of the mini miners. I have a lot of them. Yes, I buy them. I test them. They're all running. They're relatively quiet. So, if you want to run them on a 120 volt circuit, you're good to go. But is it something I recommend? Not really. But we do have a new piece of equipment that is extremely interesting, especially if you've been following proof of useful work in the short term, and it's coming from Ipolo. Ipolo launches the A Series computing device. With the heating up of ZK and AIGC industry, there is a growing demand for devices that can support ZK and AIGC computing. The devices that meet this computing demand have higher requirements for CPU and GPU computing power. In response to this specific demand, Ipolo has launched their A Series computing devices. The appearance of Ipolo's newly developed A Series is similar to that of a desktop computer host, which can be removed on all sides, making installation more convenient. The graphics card with high performance of large memory and CPU with high core are used in the interior. The memory of the graphics card can be used to render scenes. The larger graphics memory, the more scenes that can be rendered in parallel. CPU can be used for parallel computing. The more cores, the stronger the overall computing performance. The hardware configuration of this series ensures low power consumption and easy management with high computing power and stable operations, supporting ZK computing and AIGC computing more efficiently. For more details and parameters of the A Series devices, you can visit their site at ipolo.com, which we'll go ahead and try to take a look at and see here. And it talks about zero proof knowledge rollups. Remember, this is something that was teased a long time ago. And it's something as miners we need to pay attention to, because remember, this is something that's going to be a verifier on Ethereum. And when Ethereum was moving to proof of stake, there was a group of people that were saying miners can move to proofs eventually. This is pretty much what they're alluding to. Now, there's also, of course, the elephant in the room, which is like Flux, which is basically, once it moves to proof of useful work, we'll need to utilize more PCIe lanes. Therefore, going away from the traditional design of GPU mining, which is basically a buy one or buy two PCI lane that hooks up a bunch of GPUs to it and mines on a relatively low-end CPU. There are even rumors of a version of the Octo miner that will be launched that will basically be pushing out more lanes per PCIe slot so that you can, once again, mine some of the, either move into zero proof knowledge or move into, of course, the realm of proof of useful work. It also goes on to talk about AI generated content, which refers to the use of artificial intelligence technology to generate content, which is characterized by automatic production of and efficient. In recent years, the metaverse is developing step by step. In the process of moving towards the metaverse, a large amount of digital content is needed to support it, and it is simply impossible to meet the demand of manual design and development alone. AIGC is the right solution to this problem, and it will be a brand new content generation tool in the Web3 era. And this is like a whole other a can of worms when we get into the potential for GPUs to be profitable outside of just mining, right? And it's going to be something you want to pay attention to. This is why you saw the shift from Riot into high-powered computing. It's also why they build and design their systems completely differently than a traditional GPU miner that goes for the cheapest CPU and RAM and motherboard combination, where they went more the high computing route, where they have, Threadrippers and all that sort of stuff. Not really Threadrippers, but let's just say enterprise level actual server processors, Opteron, Xeon, that sort of stuff. And then plugging up, of course, more data center driven GPUs, modified, right? They had the CMPs like the 195s, 175, so on. So this is going to be, I think, a shift when in the GPU market too, that if you're a GPU miner, I wouldn't take a lot of this for granted. I think there's a lot of potential opening up here. Although various innovative algorithms are emerging, the situation that is easy to verify and difficult to generate proofs remains. The ZKP computation also requires a lot of arithmetic power consumption. So the use of various types of arithmetic power to generate ZKP computation is gradually taking off. As users seek more expressive, high performance, and private computations, the complexity of using ZKP will increase, which will result in slower proof generation, requiring the use of specialized hardware to generate proofs in a timely manner. The corresponding computing devices are created to support ZK computation. In addition, training AIGC models is required for massive amounts of data and powerful computing power. Because the computing device itself is composed of multiple GPU configurations with corresponding storage space, and these high-performance graphics cards can support AIGC image generation computations. So this is really why Ipolo is releasing it, and it's important to pay attention to. Let's see if they have it listed here yet. Let's see, products, V Series, blah, 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 B Series. This is going to be called what? The A Series? What did they say? It was, yeah, the A Series. I don't see any. We'll look under news. A Series right here. This is just what we read already, right? Yeah, so doesn't look like there's any news specifically on what these boxes are going to pertain to. I think a great option if you're going to want to be covering or building these yourselves, interestingly enough, would be like Threadripper, or even newer AMD workstations in like a Corsair half XB Evo. And when we get to the point of this really being testable and pushing forward, I will be building a few sample rigs on this channel. So make sure you pay attention. I'm very excited about this as a tech enthusiast. Having these kind of options is extremely interesting to me. So I think it should be interesting. What we see coming from Ipolo is essentially a sign of things to come, meaning they're aware of a market space that is going to be worth something. That's what we're seeing, right? So when we look at it, we could discuss whether the Ipolo device is worth it compared to building your own, etc. That's really a moot point. I think the actual discussion comes down to, oh, what is happening with proofs? And is it going to be worth, actually investing in this? Also, what is happening with AGIC? And what is happening with, let me mute Siri here, apologies for that. And what is happening with proof of useful work, which is really what we're interested in, right? I would assume a lot of white box server components going into it. Right, super micro motherboards, maybe Threadrippers with WX GPUs or Tesla GPUs, V Series GPUs, that sort of thing, right? HBM memory, I think, is going to be a big one coming up too. That is going to play a big part in a lot of this as well. Meaning you might be well advised to purchase GPUs that have HBM2 memory, and start to, in a bear market, move away from your GDDR6 and GDDR6X platforms, because I think you'll have yourself in a better position to basically generate revenue off of HBM2 devices. Meaning, just like we were talking about earlier with like a Gold Shell Mini or an Ipolo Mini, even for that matter, saving up and purchasing a real big ASIC is more beneficial. I think we can start to extrapolate that out to GPU mining as well, if you're looking to really put yourself in a position to where you have multiple options for generating revenue, right? And that's something to keep in mind. It's also going to change the way power is distributed. It's going to be more along the lines of a traditional data center, as opposed to, what's been going on recently from the ASIC side of things. So it can also put you in a position, if you are in areas like Washington, where there are penalties for crypto mining, to where you have an option to actually redefine what you do into high-powered computing. What will be interesting to me is how they determine what proofs fall under. So when you have a state like Washington who distinguishes between high-powered computing, like a server data center, and a mining farm, and charges you different, a different tax rate on your power, how do proofs get, filtered in there? Do proofs fall under, high-powered computing because they require these additional resources, or do proofs fall under, crypto mining, and how is that going to play out? Let's talk about the largest pool fraud in history, Woolly Pool, a little bit here and provide some crypto mining pool experience, dev experience from myself, as well as how much of this should you be worried about, how much of it should you be worried about. So this came from Sir Dave 2 days ago on the kaspa subreddit. It says, attention crypto community, the largest kaspa pool, Woolly Pool, has been stealing for 6 months 10 to 40% of all coins, practically openly and in plain sight. They boldly and openly lie. They have accumulated huge funds, which could lead to huge market manipulations. Today, they steal from miners, tomorrow from holders. Just one of the found wallets there are 135 million kaspa coins worth $2 million. The entire Russian internet and YouTube are full of revelations, and my forum threads and YouTube views are approaching 50,000. I'm not even a blogger, just a person who uncovered the scheme. So, even as a content creator, I can tell you, like, the amount of views does not give you any validity. If you're a blockchain dev that has been working on this, if you own and run pools yourself, and you want to show what you do with the pools, and these types of things would be what I would be looking for in your, resume for me to take you seriously. So just to be clear, that doesn't appear to be here. It does say this is going to be a long thread, and all he did was take several transactions with payouts, subtract the time between them, and calculate how much they were paid on average per day, and compared it to MinerStats readings. This is not a good way to calculate. Okay, so if we're talking about the test methodology here, the test methodology of comparing your payout compared to a calculator is almost always going to be inaccurate for a multitude of reasons, including but not limited to, of course, difficulty of the network, latency to the mining pool, the way the pool pays out and the timing of the payouts, right? How often does the pool pay out? That sort of thing. Okay. So if you can always utilize a calculator to judge ballpark range, but you can never be certain that the calculator will be accurate whatsoever, right? This is just going to be the entire premise here. Okay. So I'm not a fan of how it was calculated here, like I said, and we'll just continue to move on though. So on Woolly Pool website, there is a page where addresses and statistics of the largest pool miners are publicly displayed. After analyzing several pages of the largest miners, he said they found the same thing in their payouts. But once again, we're using a faulty calculator, potentially, right? A faulty tool, a potentially faulty tool, usually faulty, by the way, to test something, to test further. So the problem I have with this is you've already started with a flawed testing methodology, and then you're continuing that on. So it's like, I have evidence with a, basically a bad premise, a bad foundation. And so it's like, here's more evidence, but it's still based on sand, right? Not on a solid foundation. On the Woolly Pool website, there's a page where addresses and statistics. He did go over that, compiling all the data he collected, and he posted his video on YouTube. To be fair, I didn't watch this YouTube video. I did watch DeFi Django's video, who's in chat here as well. Compiling all the data he collected. He says he posted his first video. We covered that. Next, using the same method which, like I said, is already flawed. He conducted a comparative analysis of payouts over the past few days between the 4 largest pools. So all pool percentages coincided with the calculator. This is where I guess we could say, all right, so now we're getting down to where I would say, all right, if you're comparing one pool payout to another pool payout, then yes, we're getting closer to what I would say is verifiable. However, here's where we kind of run into a couple issues too. So let's talk about timing and how long, right? So, because we're going to also have to talk about the way that these pools calculate payouts. He goes on to say all pool percentages coincide with the calculator, while Woolly Pool underpaid by about 35%. This data is available for the period from September 21st to the 25th, as well as the period from September 13th to the 16th. So we have to talk about length of test here a little bit just to give some perspective, because the pool payout methods are going to adjust whether or not each pool pays out the same. And this is because depending on the pool software, if it's built either ground up or if you are, pulling pool software off of, just GitHub and then building on top of that, there's lots of different options. There's not a ton of different options. There are different pool payout methods, which we have covered on this channel multiple times, ranging from PPS to PPLNS to a whole bunch of different variations of all of those. And a lot of what was happening early on was utilizing different pool payouts to incentivize miners to not drop off of pools. Right. And we've talked about this in the past. This meant that if you were the longer you were on a pool, the more payout or heftier your shares counted. This is pretty common to implement across the board. Now, should there be a disparity of 35%? Not necessarily, but it can get as high as that. The amount of time to actually determine this would be based on the back end of whatever pool you're mining to. And so a test for, 2 separate tests that are between essentially, it looks like 5 days and 3 days, both separated. If it was September 13th through September 25th, maybe I'd be more inclined to say it's a solid test, but I do call into question the amount of time spent mining to these pools, right? And that is really where we kind of run into some issues as far as timing. Now, he does have links to some Google Docs. If you guys want to go check that out, links are down in the description. So he does say that he, using a script he wrote, he found the wallet where the withdrawal of the stolen funds come from their distribution wallets. And here's where we have to explain how a mining pool works so that people are understanding of how this functions. In a mining pool, you essentially have 2 wallets, okay? And this is where things can get extremely confusing for people that don't understand mining pools. You're going to have your node wallet, and then you're going to have your payment wallet. The reason you have a payment wallet is usually there's multiple reasons why you would have a payment wallet separate from your pool wallet. One being security, the obvious one, right? Because if you have a wallet for your node wallet, it's there. People can kind of find that node wallet. So typically what will happen is the node would find a block. It would go into the node, right? Because you're mining to that node. Remember, the miner is not mining to their own node. They're mining to a node that is controlled by somebody else. Then that node wallet will go ahead, that mining pool wallet gets the full payment. Then it takes that full payment and it sends that full payment out to a payment wallet. Then the payment wallet, using the mining software, will unlock, calculate the shares, and pay out the miners based on the shares it has calculated. Okay. The other reason why you have this is not just security, but because of multiple nodes. Let's say you have a mining pool that has a location in the US, in the EU, maybe US East, West, EU. All these separate ones, right? Well, if a node in the east finds a wallet, but you're mining as part of a pool, you're still wanting to take the full hash rate no matter where the miners are. It's still going to need to send that to a payment processor, and then calculate the shares across all nodes, right? So it's going to calculate that share across all of the nodes that you're individually mining through. There are other more complicated structures for mining pools, but this is the most simple way that I can explain it to you guys, right? So imagine it this way, right? You have a node here, a node here, a node here, node A, B, and C, right? In different locations. You're mining to node C, and the block is found on node A. The block on node A takes that payment and sends it to a payment processor, right? A payment wallet. And then the mining software will go through, it'll calculate your shares from node C and then still pay you out on that block. So it is not uncommon to see distribution go from the node wallet to an outside wallet. So the real question that we have to ask here then when we get into this is if that wallet is paying out, right? And that is where I started to try to do some research. My research has not fully, calculated out here, but what we can see, we'll refresh here. This is the wallet in question. It's already gone down quite a bit since he originally calculated it, and there were payments coming out of it, right? So here, we'll go down here. We just had one up that showed a payment coming out, but depending on the amount of blocks, it can find a lot of blocks and then pay it out. And now that we're live, I can't find one where they paid out, but fun stuff. Anyways, wallet started paying out from here when I was reviewing this. You saw it on that first page earlier. I should have just left that one up to show the example, but we're not going to be able to show it again, huh? So this is the wallet that I would pay attention to for payouts. I'm not positive this is their payout wallet. I have started going through this to see what their payout wallet is, okay? The reason being that we have to discuss all of this stuff, and I'm getting some issues over here because this is one of the payout wallets, or this was one of the node wallets. The reason we have to talk about all of this, though, is that once you start to understand the way that it functions, you can understand that what happens most of the time when miners aren't getting paid out is there's a miscalculation within the mining software, right? Within the actual code or within the configuration files, or the payment processor breaks. This can happen because the wallet gets stuck in a locked state, right? So if there were too many transactions going through, this is why you'll see like a payment, depending on the blockchain and all that, you'll see basically a time window, like we do payments once every 24 hours or whatever it is, because there's other security parameters that are put into place that can cause these types of things. Some things that happened to me while I was running pools, a wallet gets locked and the mining pool software can't unlock it and process payments. We run an update to the mining pool software because a lot of this is open source, and it changes the fee structure, right? Another really bad thing that could happen is you run an update, your config file gets replaced and it pays out to the wrong wallet entirely, okay? Now, seeing as from what I understand from Woolly Pool, this started to happen around a certain time as confirmed by DeFi Django and then stopped happening after a certain time. There is the possibility that Woolly Pool ended up in a situation where they pushed an update they shouldn't have that changed their configuration files and or their wallet got locked out and was not processing payments. These are things that could have happened, okay? A 40% fee or discrepancy, could that have happened? Yes, it could have. Am I positive that that's what happened? No, I have to do some more research. But the testing methodology here, the single address that appears to be probably a payment address, right? These aren't sufficient grounds for me to these aren't sufficient grounds for me to condemn Woolly Pool right off the bat. The question will be, is do they make the users whole, right? And this is where I guess there's still some questions. Some things that I'm worried about, for example, on this in particular, is that Woolly Pool has not been addressing this on their Twitter very much. The only thing that I've seen is that due to a database issue that happened on 20th through the 25th period, they're making the recalculations now. So this could also have been a crashed database, and they recovered the database and it didn't pay out. So a database usually in mining pool software is keeping track of what? It's keeping track of shares, okay? So when you are mining, you're getting shares. Shares are a completely centralized idea. They are not decentralized at all whatsoever. You are completely dependent on basically a SQL database for tracking those shares and then submitting them to a script that runs through a payment processor, okay? So as you're mining, those shares are basically going into a database. You're dependent on Woolly Pool's databases being up to date and accurate. And what it appears to be here to me is that Woolly Pool's databases were not up to date and were not accurate, right? That's what it appears to me to be. If they fix that, good. How do you make users whole here? That can be a little bit more complicated. If they've lost the database data, right, completely, it would be nearly impossible for them to go through and figure out what they owe to each individual miner. So this is going to put obviously a huge black mark on Woolly Pool. And if you aren't, this is one of the reasons people ask me, like, why don't you run pools? Path to hell is paved with good intentions. I don't necessarily think that Woolly Pool is doing anything here intentionally. I think that they basically had a poor process put in place. They didn't perform their due diligence on upgrades, and they did not have proper updates running on their databases. This is why when you get into pool infrastructure, you need to have a full IT team. You need to have cybersec professionals, you need to have networking professionals, you need to have database professionals, and all of it should be treated from a mining pool infrastructure setup as you would treat basically the most sensitive of data, meaning like it should be treated like you're a banking data center. That's how it should be treated, because that is what you're messing with here. And if you do not have the capability of doing that, and if you do not have like literally like 15-minute incremental backups on your databases for tracking shares, then you need to either reconsider what you're doing or hire some outside professional help. That is how I would put this, okay? Once again, do I think Woolly Pool is scamming you? No. Do I think they made a mistake here? Yes. Do I think they'll make you whole? That's where I don't know if it's even physically possible for them to do so. Because if they've lost the database data, then you are screwed, okay? That's it. That's pretty much what it comes down to. I would not throw shade directly at Woolly Pool and say that they're stealing stuff, especially because we've already seen the balance on the wallet in question come down, okay, by over $500,000, by over $500,000, okay? So, you know, if this starts getting funneled, right, like if this starts getting funneled to an exchange, then we can start bringing up questions as to what is going on. There could technically still be a reason for it going to an exchange, I suppose. I know, for example, that, well, or coming out of an exchange, I guess. I know that for me in particular, when we had the Pearl pool hacked, what I had to do was buy a bunch of Pearl and then send it to the payment processing wallet, and then that wallet finished its payment processing. But we didn't have database errors because we had database backups, right? So we didn't have any errors within our shares, so the shares were completely up to date. The wallet was just drained by a hacker, okay? So a little bit of a different situation here. Whereas right now, what it appears is the payment processor can't, doesn't have the data to process the transactions. So that is so far what I can tell you. And then Rockefeller says we asked for Woolly Pool to explain it, and the thing is like I can explain it because of what they explained here. Okay. Meaning, if you have any experience in IT and you've worked with IT guys, all I am is the interpreter of the IT guy. I can tell you exactly what's happening because I have an intimate knowledge of how this works. Okay. And then I do have that knack, luckily, like the reason why I think a lot of y'all watch is I have that knack of being able to explain a complicated process in an easy to understand manner and articulate it, right? And so all I'm doing is articulating what the problem could be with Woolly Pool. And this isn't a condemnation, nor is it an absolution of Woolly Pool, right? Once again, if they do not have proper and to me, when you say you have a database issue, then I'm wondering, is there data lost in that database, right? Or is that database there? Can you restore it and restore the payments? But like, let's say there was a database issue and you were mining during a database crash and then the database was restored. Then those shares weren't being tracked for that time that the database was crashed, right? So in that case, there wouldn't be a physical way for them to repay, to my knowledge. Now, if you're a miner on Woolly Pool and you pull it up and you have a certain amount of shares, right, and you aren't getting paid out what those shares should calculate out to, then at that point, then I would assume that the shares are obviously what happens, like when you go to a website, right, or a mining pool website. Let's go to Woolly Pool, right? And you go to, you look at, let's see, does it actually show shares in here? See, this is a problem. I don't think they show shares. Yeah, they don't. They just show effort. So actually, I don't like this. If I was, let's see, it just shows you last share. It doesn't show you total share count. So I would go back to the dates in question. Probably. Let's see, these are all. See, okay, so we have another problem here, guys. This miner looks pretty new, or his shares are lost, right? So this is saying that March 5th of 2023 is when this miner was mining. So I'm actually curious. Showing total shares would tell us a little bit better, but let's go through this. Let's go through this and see if we can find, nope, wrong way. A miner that, I was going to try to open a new tab. So no, not that. It's fine. A miner that goes beyond that. Nope, not that. I just want to see the miner, right? So I want to go here. What do I click to go to there? Sorry. Oh, miners. I got to keep clicking this tab. Okay, let's go here. Let's go to shares. Yeah, this is concerning, okay? What's concerning to me here is that all of their shares don't go back further than today. And this miner has been mining for a week. So why that is concerning is, like, if this miner's been mining for a week, we should see shares. I mean, now they only show 10 pages, so maybe they have a limit on this, right? So when they're pulling from the API that's pulling from the database and saying a share was submitted on this time, right? Maybe because they don't want to have a bunch of pulls on their database, they're saying only show shares, last shares for the past 24 hours or whatever it is. So looking at the pool, I can't really determine if there was a lapse in recording of the shares, or a glitch in the recording of the shares, but that could have been possible as well. So, that is where we're at as far as that's concerned. Something definitely happened. More than likely, what it looks like to me is the database went down and they didn't have incremental backups on the database. How they handle this is obviously going to be a problem too, but I'm not going to get into the drama of it. I'm very aware of, like, if pool ops feel like they're doing the right thing, they're under a lot of stress and they're working a lot, they're going to be rude. It doesn't condone that. It's just like, understand where that's coming from, right? Understand where that's coming from. Luckily, as cryptocurrency miners, it's very, very, very easy to go ahead and switch pools, right? Here's where I think things are weird, okay? What they have said now is that there's a recalculation going on. Okay, so let's talk about what that means and what more than likely is happening here. Okay. This is where somebody could actually come into the system and really F this up for Woolly Pool. You guys need to know this information, but you also need to understand that if you do this, it's highly unethical. Okay. Okay. I'm going to make this extremely clear. You need to understand this information, but if you go do this, it's highly unethical and highly questionable, right? More than likely, because they are recalculating, this is what's happening. Remember, we have a database that stores the shares that you are getting, okay? That you're earning on the pool. So I think what they'll probably do is they probably have a record of all the miners that were connected to the pool prior to a database crash or an error with the database. Okay. Now, if they want to pay those miners out, they need to calculate the percentage of work those miners were doing during that time. Okay. Then they can create basically a fake database to feed the payment processor. Most likely the reason why the payment processing wallet has probably changed. Okay. They've most likely stood up another mining pool software with a separate wallet that now the money is going to. On the old one, they've probably locked the wallet and they're trying to determine the percentage of which for each one of for that wallet needs to go to essentially all the miners. So what does that mean? Well, they're probably taking and saying, okay, these were the miners that were mining. Let's see what their hash rate is now. And depending on the percentage of hash rate of the pool that they currently have is what will pay out when we process the payments on the old mining software. This means if you were mining on Woolly Pool prior to the database crash, okay, and you now turn on more hash rate than you had prior, it's going to mess up the calculation for that payment processing. Once again, I said it's unethical to do so, but that's where this gets into a very tricky position. This is also why they probably won't tell you exactly what's happening until after, because if that information was leaked, then there are people that would game the system. For example, throw a bunch of extra hash rate through NiceHash or something along those lines on a particular wallet address that was mining on it beforehand so that they can basically garner the entire payout that didn't go through because the database was crashed. Okay. So, once again, I do not think that Woolly Pool is doing anything intentional, but I think this is also why they are keeping it hush-hush. Because the way that you recover this is very tricky, and there's not a way for them to guarantee it. So that's how you would game this. That's probably what they're trying to avoid. It does sound like a database crash. If we look at, once again, if we look at the history of the last shares, it doesn't go back further than today, which tells me that at least the API that is pulling data is not pulling data from older than today, which means it is quite possible there's a brand new database right now. Okay. Which means they rebuilt from the ground up and there's a brand new database. Probably a brand new wallet for the payment processing as well. Yeah. There you go. That's as much as I can deep dive into that for you guys right now. Hopefully it gives you a better understanding of how this stuff functions. And, you know, it is what it is. I think Woollypool's going to lose a lot of credibility, regardless. I don't think there's any, I don't think that there is any reason to go, be rude to the devs or anything like that at this point. At this point, decentralization is going to play its part. Capitalism will play its part here, right? Like, people are going to move off the pool when they don't trust it. We see this all the time. Okay. Let that happen. No personal attacks are needed at this point, right? Let's talk about new miner releases for the week. LOL Miner version 1.69 3 days ago added Nexa support for AMD Vega and Radeon 7 and RDNA 1 through 3 GPUs. Pretty cool. So, if you got some Vega GPUs or RDNA GPUs and you wanted to mine Nexa, well, here you go. The parameter keep free can now be used to keep certain amount of memory free on each GPU on Nexa mining. This might end up in allocating a smaller lookup table so the GPU memory has space left for other workarounds. The keep free parameter is now working for each GPU separately. Use of comma-separated lists of values if you want to assign different values for each GPU. And Nexa Mining will now allocate memory for each GPU sequentially and delay later card startup slightly to help systems with small virtual memory. Here's some additional notes. AMD Vega and 7 are currently only supported on GPU drivers running the ROCm Compute OpenCL driver stack. This is the default for Vega GPUs on the latest Linux drivers, but not on pre-2021 drivers. Support for older drivers and maybe older GPUs might be included with the upcoming releases. They also say, attention, we have seen cases where one or multiple RX 6000 series GPUs have been mining significantly slower than identical cards on the same rig. This happens only on older 21.x or 20.0.40 Linux drivers. They recommend to update to 21.50 or 22.20 to fix the issue. For users of the alternative Windows version of 1.68, use the keep free 1024 or higher to get the effect the alternative version has. General note, the GPU or the Nexa GPU codes are and will be in the foreseeable future joint work with ZIL Miner, who also has a new release today, 13.3.0, adding the same stuff, support for AMD on Nexa. They fixed the plus ZIL on AMD and improved dual mining switching with plus ZIL, alternative optimized and parallel mining. Now showing estimated time before next switch when alternate mining. And then they note that it's in conjunction with LOL Miner, and they give you all the update stuff and information. So ZIL Miner and LOL Miner working together to basically keep GPU mining alive right now. They really are. They really, really are. Super pumped with those guys working together. All the updates. They're the most up to date. They're the best. They're the best. It is what it is. Let's talk about mining profitability. So on mining profitability, we have the RTX 3070 here actually at, well, let's go to 13 cents a kilowatt hour. Being profitable on Alephium and Radiant at 13 cents a kilowatt hour. 5 cents a day on Alephium and 6 cents a day on Radiant. Probably even more profitable on Radiant, to be completely honest with you. Or did they fix it? I think they might have fixed it. Is it? Yeah, they fixed it. That's about right on the hash rate. Okay. So make sure that you guys are putting in the tickers. You can either do it in the actual configuration itself. We've talked about this before, or you can lock it in with the memlock command and lock that memory down to 810 megahertz on the 3000 series GPUs. So keep that in mind. We are not profitable on kaspa. A lot of people have jumped onto kaspa. It is only losing 4 cents a day. It does look like it's calculating out the correct hash rate now. So probably pretty accurate here. We can look at hashrate.no as well, which is showing Dynex is extremely profitable across the board, but I'm not sure that's verifiable. So let me know if you guys are mining DNX and if you're getting the same reward. I really am not. So I don't really have a high faith in this calculator right now for Dynex in particular. That being said, I was looking at the hash rate and we did have this big drop off. So that's probably why this number came up and then everybody hopped back on. So there seems to be an issue here and their difficulty chart just doesn't work at all anymore. I'm not really sure what's up with that. So it is down 5% over the past 7 days. At least that's what that was showing. I guess if we look at CoinMarketCap, it is up a little bit. So there you go. Mining profitability on that. And then we were going to look at miner stat for the Asic Miner profitability. Antminer L7 still in first place. Mining Doge at $10 a day. Like we said, if it is merge mining, it is doing about $12 a day. We got the Antminer KA3 in second place, doing $16.86 a day on Kadena. And then the K7 in third place, doing essentially $15.46 a day on CKB for Antpool, about $15.75 a day on 2 miners for CKB. And then moving on down from there, we have the Antminer D7 doing $13.46 a day on Dash and the Ipolo G1 doing 28 cents a day on Grin. It gets a little weird with this nice hash rental thing going on with the G1. So I'm not sure what's up with that. Goldshell HS3 doing $7.44 a day on Handshake. And then if we scroll down from there, the S19 Pro, which is the one we take a look at every day, is losing $2.07 a day, mining at 13 cents a kilowatt hour on Digibyte. So there you go. Let's look at the mining pool stats for the day as well. Bitcoin saw a drop of price over the past 7 days of 3.38%. We are back under 23,000. Nothing too crazy there, but we are, hitting higher difficulties every day as well. If we look at the Bitcoin, let's look at the Bitcoin halving countdown. It should be nice and accurate right now. Looking at March of 2024, so still quite accelerated. We're going to have to wait until the summer to see how much hash rate drops off due to the heat before we can really determine what that is going to be. Let's take a look at Ethereum Classic. Ethereum Classic at 128 terahash a second. It's down 6.6% over the past 7 days. Ethereum proof of work is down 10% and is sitting at 19.58 terahash a second. Ethereum Fair sitting at 2.32 terahash a second and down 12.35%. And then we got the good old Zilica down 14% over the past 7 days, sitting at 24 terahash a second, most likely because it is being merge mined or dual mined for the most part. Let's go ahead and take a look at Flux. We did see a resurgence in price, I think, today, but it is still down over the past 7 days by about 15% and sitting at 3.65 mega solutions a second. That does mean that, of course, we'll take a look at kaspa as well, up 40% over the past 7 days and is sitting at 474 terahash a second on the total network, 365 terahash a second if you are looking at pools only. Let's look at Ergo. Ergo is down 11% over the past 7 days and is sitting at 32.66 terahash a second. Take a look at Radiant. Since it's been on the top, it's up 55% over the past 7 days and sitting at 25.3 terahash a second. And Alephium, excuse me, is up 225% over the past 7 days and sitting at 52 terahash a second. We also did an interview a couple weeks ago with the developer, so make sure you go check out that interview if you want to know more about kaspa. Nexa is one for proof of work that's been kind of pumping up. It's up 24% over the past 7 days and sitting at 15.46 terahash a second. Boom. Let's get into questions and answers. Remember, super chats are never required, always appreciated, first to be answered. And before we get into that, once again, today's show brought to you by myself. Check out sonofatech.com and claim your spot for my crypto mining e-course. Pretty excited about this one, so check it out. We'll be talking about setting up e-courses and like what the process was like, because that was extremely fun. In addition to that, I am looking to hit our goal of 500 new supporters on sonofatech.locals.com. Become a monthly supporter over there and get access to supporter-only live streams and supporter-only tips and tricks on what I am currently mining and how much and what I'm moving into from a speculative mine point of view. All right, so let's get into questions and answers. Shio says, "That's Sonofatech. I've been using Woolly Pool since the post-ETH proof of stake switch. You noticed the increase of my 500 KAS payout from 2 to 3 days. Simply thought this is due to difficulty increase on the network." Yeah, there wasn't a huge difficulty increase on the network, though, was there? Let's look at that, too. I mean, there has been. Okay. So, to be fair, over the past 6 months, past few days even, we have had a tick up in difficulty from about 300 to 415. So a decent tick up in difficulty over the past 7 days. You know, March 1st here at like 13 terahash. Oh, this is the wrong network. What am I doing? That's Nexa. kaspa, rocking the kaspa. Yeah, there's been a tick up from like 291 to about 358. But if we're talking about earlier in the year, earlier, that's only really happened in the past like 3 days. So it depends. Patrick says, "Wish YouTube notified you earlier." Always can rewatch. And make sure you're following me over on sonofatech.locals. I post my I Go Live over there every day, as well as over on Twitter at sonofatech. Mine something says, "At Sonofatech, Dynex was attacked. I did hear about that. Difficulty dropped while the network went down." Snark says, "Yeah, server issues a couple times the last few days." Yeah, however, they're integrating the proof of useful work seems to need some work, huh? Gandalf says, "At Sonofatech, I didn't know you were going live." No worries. Hope you got your radiator changed, dude. Effie says, "At Sonofatech, how's the gym training going?" Biceps. So there's the biceps, but it's not going great. I have possibly, we'll find out more. I got an MRI scheduled for 6 a.m. tomorrow. Possibly a ruptured tendon tibialis on my left foot. Mine something says, "At Sonofatech, insights are worth more than weight in gold." Thanks. Thank you for watching, man. Make sure you guys go sub to Mine Something as well. Trillion Capital says, "At Sonofatech, curious as your thoughts on the Osprey. I know you've covered it extensively, but any analysis? Worried about it getting replaced, outdated quickly." The Osprey is not an ASIC, so it's a little confusing, right? It does run essentially bit streams on 3 FPGAs through a control board, right? So You can buy those FPGAs separate, but at the same time, understandably, it's hard to source those. So if you're running 3 FPGAs in it, you can't source the FPGAs out yourself and you just buy the Osprey. I mean, it makes sense. I haven't had one. I don't know what that does to the reliability of the hash board or the FPGAs themselves, right? I have not looked at the design, so I don't really have enough of an idea, unfortunately. But yeah, I mean, we're talking about FPGAs being thrown into a box, plugged into what is the equivalent of a Raspberry Pi, and that's it, right? So, being the control board, right? Raspberry Pi basically being the control board, which if you aren't familiar, yeah, FPGA for the most part, what you do is you get a Raspberry Pi with a USB extender and you plug a bunch of FPGAs into it. That's what you do. No, we'll see how this goes out. It's a nice all-in-one unit, 14 gigahash a second. Let's look at that. Osprey. Miner. I had this pulled up the other day. There's it ospreyelectronics.io. So, yeah, I mean you're looking at 3 VU35Ps. Now, my understanding is that the VU35Ps go for about 800 a piece and that there's 3 of them in here. Meaning if you were to, and that's retail, right? You would have to get a source to buy them for that, which is obviously difficult and why they can sell this at such a premium. But you're at basically a $2,700 premium for it being essentially an all-in-one unit, right? Yeah, they just renamed the FU30Ps to the E300. So you see how there's 3 separate chips in here? Funny enough, mining the Woolly Pool here. They're just pulling the syslog. So it's a Linux-based operating system. You can tell because they're just running a tail command on the log folder, the default log folder. Yeah, and then it says here, so the FPGAs, and if you go over 900M, you could hurt the HBM. There's your algorithm choice and the configuration method. Oh, and they're using Team Red Miner. So they didn't even get their own bit stream. That's what it looked like to me, yeah. And all they did was modify Team Red Miner to say E300 instead of the FUP35. So it's a $2,700 upsell, or it's a $2,700 convenience fee. Right. But part of that convenience is actually finding the unit, or finding the cards, which is difficult to do. So, to be completely fair to them, that's, part of the problem. I mean, I know for a fact that guy's trying to get a bunch made, right? Let's do the coin calculator. Bitcoins, kaspa, calculator. Does this have temperatures on it? Yeah, 52, 59, 59 C. I wonder what the ambient temperature is. Uh, 250 to 500 watts. I assume we're at 500 watts, right? 3 Z-Links Ultra Scale VU 35Ps. $14,000. Ah. At 500 watts. I mean, these are going to do pretty good, right? 661 a day. Calculator. 5100 divided by 6.61. Wait, hold on. Did that wrong. 5100 divided by 6.61. The 2-year payout ROI. So, we'll see. I'm going to probably still try to go the FK33 route. You need like, what, 7 of them to hit that same hash? Let me do my math out here. Retail, you're a little under. Like 800, 900 cheaper, something like that. All right. Crypto Tim with the $4.99 super chat. Thank you for that super chat, my man. Would you buy a D7 if you had the money right now? About 2 Doge miners and think they'll go up in value in the bull market. D7 is kind of interesting because, like, obviously, if you're invested in Dash, you really want to have a node, right? Which is like probably worth like a lot of money now. How long until you can mine a node from a D7? Does Dash have legs? Maybe. I think to play it safe, Bitcoin miners are always going to go up in the bull market, right? But if you want to make money right now, like the D7 and the L7s, like they're enticing, right? Making money during the bear market, and they'll probably will go up in price when it hits. Paul says he's still waiting on the E300 he ordered last year, so that's important to know that they're not really getting them shipped out. Second TL Mining says still planning on selling FPGAs. Man, as soon as I know, it'll be everywhere. Shio says, at Summit, glad to see you live again. Thank you, good sir. Watching your streams the next days. You're streaming at 4 a.m. in your time zone. Yeah, we have to do that late on usually on Fridays. My head, yeah, I got a big head, Serpent. What's up? Make sure you guys go sub to Serpent X Tech as well as DJ Mines too. All right. Do we have any more questions, or we'll just move over? I think at this point. Yeah, I got a new mail. It was a referral order for BT miners. BT miners. It doesn't tell me what they bought, though. I wonder what they bought. It tells me how much they spent. It says they spent $3,800. Man, I wish I got a percentage and not just a flat rate. If they spent $3,700, what miners could they have bought? Nothing on the Bitcoin side is that price. Nothing on the Litecoin side. Nothing on the Ethereum side. All right, going to altcoin miners here. Oh, an HS3 handshake miner. Or possibly an IB-Link BMK3 Cadena miner. One of these two. They're in that price range. Could have been one of those. You know? Can't buy the FK33 anywhere right now. Do I see an ASIC, a kaspa ASIC coming soon? With F2 pool adopting kaspa, it is possible, because if you remember, F2 pool was pretty tight with Bitmain for a while. So there's definitely a possibility. I would assume the first to market would be somebody like Gold Shell, but who knows? What do I think about Nexa? It's Nexa. I don't know. It's another ProgPal coin, you know, forked ProgPal coin. I mean, I have some miners on it right now, but I don't really have a strong feeling either way. It's not like really anything special. Or I don't feel like it is. I could be wrong. Solar Miner in Spain says, Ask Tech, maybe Bitmain are testing new ASICs for kaspa with F2 pool. Do you think F2 pool's launched it now, right? What is their... Let's look at this. Oh, it doesn't show you how much hash rate's on there. That's just total hash rate. What about hash rate on their pool specifically? I don't know. It doesn't say. Mining pool stats. That's a good idea. F2 pool. 4.62 terahash. I mean, I feel like if they had ASICs deployed, they'd be doing a lot more than that. But you'd really have to look at individual miners, right? It's like if you go to Woolly Pool, you pull up kaspa, you go to miners, you go to the top miner here. I mean, all of these basically look like rigs with like all of these rigs are FPGA, right? Because you're not running a 40 30 90s on a single motherboard. You know what I mean? Even if this is, yeah, this is an FPGA farm though, dude. Look at that, dude. That's so crazy. $360,000 a month on kaspa. They're all built exactly the same way almost. Yeah, 329 million kaspa a month. That's more than the total amount of kaspa I have. By a lot. I wonder where the, hold on. Is that, the rich list has to have changed a lot as well, huh? Did they take the rich list down? I have to dig too deep to find the rich list today. Do I think the D9 will kill the D7 similar to the Kadena situation? Yeah, until a bull run, right? How to update the AMD drivers? Usually you just have to update Hive OS. DGIBs. Because AMD drivers are built into the Linux kernel. Probably Richard from Tool. All right, boys. I'm going to head off. Thanks for the likes, comments, subscribes. Thanks for hanging out today. I am going to go live over on Locals. Let's see if I can get this working. I don't know how long I'll be live. Because, you know, is what it is. But I will get you that link right now. The Crypto Mining Show after party. If you want to chat some more, I'll be live over on Locals. Give me about a 10-minute break or so. I'll see you next Tuesday. Don't forget to check out sonofatech.com and get signed up early for the Ecourse.